Good evening, and welcome to Doc Moore's collection of horror stories. Join Doc Moore as he reads terrifying stories that will leave you shocked and frightened. Now, from the Moore Media Production Studio, high up in central Oahu, Hawaii, here's your host, Dr. Moore. Good evening. I'm Stephen B. Doc Moore Sr. For the next 15 minutes, we will explore tales of the supernatural, the paranormal, and the macabre. Please click the subscribe button so I can continue to bring you these stories that shock and frighten you. Let's get to our first story. This story is from Rudy. He calls it The Presence at 2 a.m. Did I ever tell you the story? This is true for real. Back in 1967, my dad moved us into a 5-bedroom house built in 1956. Nothing strange about it. Very nice, 2 stories. We even had it blessed by a Catholic priest. Anyway, one night my sister came into my room about 2 o'clock in the morning and woke me up. She looked scared as hell. She told me that she felt strange, that my door kept opening and closing. And she was right. It did just that. In that moment, I could feel the presence of someone I was scared to death. I was so scared that I began to pray. We both did. We prayed real hard for about 30 minutes. Then it stopped. But we could no longer feel the presence of something, and we were able to go back to sleep. Then about a month later, my little brother, who slept in the same room with me, woke me up and said he was frightened by our door opening and closing. Same time, 2 o'clock in the morning, and in a fearful state. We prayed for it to stop. 30 minutes went by, and it finally stopped, and the feeling of a presence went away. It never happened again after that. However, one day, after playing with our neighbor, she told us that the people who lived in the house before us had a young daughter who became very ill and died in the house early in the morning. This story came from Rudy. This was a tough story, shocking. And Rudy has more stories for us, and we will provide those stories in the future episodes. This next story comes from James. James calls this story The Visit of the Vampire. I knew some of the folklore beliefs of Romania. Werewolves, demons, witches, and other supernatural creatures. I think I met one, possibly a vampire. I lived to tell this tale too. See, I was in the Air Force, the U.S. Air Force, and during Operation Iraqi Freedom 2003, I was stationed at an air base in Romania. I loaded planes going into the combat zone in Iraq and Afghanistan. My unit stayed at a hotel located on the Black Sea. Let me tell you about Romania a little bit. Romania really gets dark in the wintertime. It's cold and dark. And the folks that worked in the hotel made sure to be gone from the hotel before the sun went down. We were always told, lock your doors and don't open the windows at night. I was on the day shift, so I always came back to the hotel in the evening. I asked the desk clerk why all the crosses in the hotel, and he explained the reason. The desk clerk said that Romania is a very old country. Evil spirits were called vampires. They fed on the blood and flesh of people since the earliest days when the Romans ruled. People today still feared the vampires. Bodies had been found drained of blood. So the desk clerk said crosses were placed to protect the living from the dead. Don't open the doors. Don't open the windows. I thanked him and I went to my room. I drank a beer while I watched Romanian TV. I got sleepy, fell into bed. Later on, I heard knocks. I looked at my clock. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. I thought it was at my door. I heard knocks again. Wasn't the door. The knocks were at my window. Impossible. I was on the 10th floor. I didn't move. Then I got out of bed, went over to the window. I pulled back the curtain. I saw a woman outside my window. She kept asking me to let her in. No, I remember what the desk clerk said. I staggered back. The woman just kept floating there, insisting that I let her in. I grabbed a cross from the desk. I raised that cross up. She went backward because she saw the cross. She snarled and disappeared into the dark. I shut the curtains. I ran and got back into bed and held that cross to my chest while I fell asleep. The next day I told the clerk about what I saw, and he said, "Good thing I paid attention to what he said." Someone else didn't. Another airman opened his window, and he was found this morning. He had massive blood loss. Massive blood loss. He had to be medevaced to Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany. His room was on the 10th floor too, right next to mine. That was James' interview, and James said his encounter with a vampire made him go believe in ghosts and goblins and all kind of stuff that bump in the night. You know, vampires, drinking blood. There's a prohibition against drinking blood. It's found in the Bible. Leviticus 17. God told Moses, "Don't eat blood. Otherwise, anyone who ate or drank blood will be cut off from God, because the life of the creature is in the blood, and blood makes atonement for one's life. Don't eat or drink blood." Again, this is from Leviticus chapter 17, verse 1 through 16. Read it for yourselves. This next story, I got this from a desk clerk I met in Shanghai while I was TDY. Jung Go from Shanghai calls this story "The Water Ghosts of the Bund." I worked at a restaurant in Shanghai that was frequented by foreign businessmen. It was next to the Bund, which is the river walk in Shanghai. Business brought a lot of foreign and domestic businessmen together from around the world and from China. So they ate at the restaurant after businesses was done. But this was also around the Chinese Ghost Month. People talked about the Ghost Month and ghosts coming from the lower realms of the dead. Foreigners were warned and were told not to go near bodies of water at night. Ghosts of people that drowned came out of the water to get someone to take their place. Foreign businessmen laughed at us. A group of these businessmen, there were 6 of them, they said they would test this theory. After the meal ended, they got in a cab and went to the Bund Riverwalk. They said they were going to chase ghosts and test the theory. Sometime later, they came back to the restaurant, talking loudly about how they didn't see any ghosts. They mocked the restaurant workers because of their belief. They said Chinese people were silly with all this folklore. And they ate and they drank some more. Then they left the restaurant and went to the hotel across the street. Late that night, the same evening, we were closing. One of the businessmen came running into the restaurant. He was one of the businessmen who came looking for ghosts at the Bund Riverwalk. This man said the ghost took all of the men except for himself. See, they came back complaining of being touched, feeling cold, feeling strange. After the restaurant, they went to their hotel rooms. He could hear the men starting to scream because they were all on the same floor. Their rooms were next to each other. Hotel security entered their rooms later. No one was in the room. The man said, "I came here for help. The staff told me to get your clothes, get out of the hotel, get to the airport, and leave now. before the ghost gets you. The man was in shock. His face turned bright white. He ran from the restaurant. We saw him go across the street and into the hotel. The papers the next day said 5 foreign visitors, businessmen, left the hotel without paying their bill. They didn't take their luggage either. They did cause a lot of water damage in the rooms, though. The rooms were filled on the floor. The carpets were soaked. The beds, everything was soaked with water. In each of the rooms, 5 men were missing. Wow, that was a pretty good story. Pretty good story. I like that. They didn't pay attention to local custom, local folklore, and that's what caused their problem. This Chinese ghost story came from Zhengzhou. Hey, this is good. A couple of stories, plus my good friend Rudy sent in another one. Another pretty intense story. Here it goes. Night came to being. All were silent but asleep. The trickle of leaking faucet could be heard, and the living room floor creaked in the night. And out of it all came a sudden scream near or far from within, with words of intense fear to follow. It seemed like a dream, but how could that be, for I was awake and not yet asleep. Then in that same moment, bursting through the master suite came my mom, crying she was, tears flowing down her face, and with a look of fear so intense, so pronounced, that the core being of fear itself seemed to come to life. Alas, she calmed by my father touch, but only for a moment. And once again, with a cry far greater than before, echoing in the hallway's dark corridor, the words "help me" entered my ears. And while in complete awe and bewildered by it all, the sound of a light switch entered my ears. And it clicked off and on again, the room responding with dark and light. Alas, dawn arrived and all is once again well. And so to myself I ask, what strange things occurred? And in my search for some sort of explanation, the mystery reveals itself in a manner both logical and haunting. As it was told to us by a neighbor, strange things have occurred on nights randomly ever since the passing of a woman who died in front of our room from a massive heart attack in years before we came to live there. And thus the story ends, but with one final touch. Sometime later, while I was sitting in the master suite watching TV, and just like that strange night, the light switch clicked on and off again, and no one was in the room with me. I was 9 years old. Rudy is sending us some really good ghost stories, paranormal activity, all kind of, you name it, you have it. Well, that's it. We've come to the end of episode 3, Ghost Stories, with some really good input. This is from listeners just like you. We appreciate it. Please feel free to provide feedback and comments about this show. And thank you for sending in your stories and for sharing your paranormal experiences. Join me next time as I bring you more stories from people just like you. Feel free to contact me at my website or email. Send your ghost stories to docmorecollectionhorror@hotmail.com. That's docmorecollectionhorror@hotmail.com. Or click on the websites. Please click on subscribe so I can continue to bring you these stories of the supernatural, the paranormal, and the macabre from around the world. Until next time, that noise in the dark, that bump in the night, is it real? Is it true? You be the judge. You've been listening to Doc Moore's collection of horror stories with your host, Stephen B. Doc Moore Sr. Join us next time as Doc Moore brings more stories about supernatural ghosts, evil spirits, and other phenomena. Please click the subscribe button so we can continue bringing you stories that frighten and shock you. Until next time, beware. This is a Stephen B. Moore, Senior PhD Media Productions LLC. Music created and performed by Tanya and Stephen B. Moore Sr.